Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is August 20th, 2018, live, New Jersey, you in your home. Josh, where are you today? Berlin?
Berlin City, yes.
You wouldn't be able to tell if you could see the background. Do you have your cool thing in the back today?
Oh, yeah, lots of cool pictures. Hey, have we got an amazing show for you folks today? We are taking on one of the most controversial dApps, or decentralized applications, in the space at the moment. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's either bitching or everyone's, shilling it. So this is PS3D.
No, it's not, Josh. You know what? I'm like a little upset. You're totally ruining it. I'm supposed to introduce it. You don't even have the name of the project down.
I'm just so amped, man. I'm so amped to do this.
You're like getting spanked later. Like, not in a fun way. It's going to be horrible. There's going to be like a rack. It's over.
It's a rack.
P3D is actually a project that I wanted to bring on the show because I like it. I think it's really interesting. My friend Kingsley told me about it. I have a little bit of money in there. And it's part of proofofwecans.io. And that has like another sub game called FOMO 3D. And they all sort of feed each other in this weird Ponzi scheme. We've got Preston Byrne coming on because he's going to be saying that it's a scam. Maybe not. Maybe we could convince him, but he's a little bit more of the skeptic. Then we've got Kingsley, who's like shilling the hell out of this. Not because he's a shill, but because he actually believes in the project. Petros, also from his team, is going to be giving a little bit more of a technical analysis. So we're going to basically be trying to figure out what's the deal with this thing. Why does it have so much popularity? What's the difference between all the other types of games that are similar to that? But before we do that, we have a couple things that have to happen. Number one, I'm going to tell you about who is bringing this show to us, because this show couldn't happen without our sponsors. And we have a really cool one because I am really interested in getting an IRA. So when they told me about them wanting to sponsor, I was excited. It's trustetc.com/crypto. So crypto investors in the US, are you concerned with taxes impacting your profits? It might be possible to mitigate taxes by investing in cryptocurrency with your IRA. With a self-directed IRA, you can invest in Bitcoin and other crypto in a potentially tax-deferred or tax-free way. Discover more by visiting trustetc.com/crypto. The free guide will explain the benefits and possibilities for you to invest in a tax-advantaged environment. Get your guide now at trustetc.com/crypto. So I think that sounds pretty fun. Not fun, but maybe fun in terms of not paying all your money to Uncle Sam. And it sounds like a legal way to do it. I need to do a little bit more research, but I'm going to run it past. Another one of our sponsors is the Bitcoin CPA, which is Kirk Phillips, a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. I'm going to ask him about it, actually.
Yeah, very good idea. And look, I mean, if
instead of 99.9% in crypto, like everybody else.
If you haven't got a self-managed IRA or super fund, I think you're probably in the biggest Ponzi scheme ever anyway, because, letting other people deal with your retirement fund and just invest it and randomly put it anywhere and wait for new generations to be born and work and sort of feed into this fund. I think the best way is to really put some of that in crypto. But I'm definitely
You're giving it sounds like a lot of financial advice. Nobody here is qualified to give financial advice.
I'm totally not qualified. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing. If you're listening to me and taking advice from me, then quite frankly, you're an idiot.
Okay, so we're gonna bring on Sharon Burns, but before we do, I know you have a new podcast. So you want to give it a quick plug? Where can people listen? What is it? Crypto Calls, right?
Yeah, Crypto Calling. We're setting up here. You can see a fantastic green screen setup. No, basically we wanted to reach out to people to call into the show and talk to guests, and just an interesting thing. So Crypto Calling, it's at the Vaultoro channel on YouTube. That's Vaultoro. That's Vault, as in Gold Vault, VAULT, and Oro, which is Spanish for gold, Vaultoro. So all right, great. Check that out.
Nice. Okay, cool. So why don't we bring up Sharon? Sharon is going to be on the, I don't know, what is it? A cruise around Chicago, which is just the beginning of the Voice of Blockchain event, which is out in Chicago this weekend. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And, tell us a little bit about this upcoming conference.
Well, Tatiana and Josh, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah, you're all set.
Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's been really exciting so far to be listening and to be part of it. So, yes, the Voice of Blockchain conference is coming to Chicago this weekend. It's a Friday and Saturday night event. Both days are packed full of exciting speeches and conferences. We've got people from government, we've got investors, we've got brand new projects, we've got projects that are in the late stages. It's probably going to be one of the most exciting things I've seen. And it's going to be at beautiful Navy Pier in Chicago, which is right out on the lake. Special fireworks Saturday night, not that we're doing them, but it's going to be a great event. I've been responsible for the blockchain for social good track. So we have over 20 projects coming that are all in the social good space. This is going to be the largest platform independent gathering of social good people and speakers and projects. So I'm really excited and couldn't be more proud of the Chicago Blockchain Project for putting this on. Everyone's welcome. We can give you links and would really love everyone to attend.
Yeah, are there any highlights that you're particularly looking forward to?
Oh, crypto philanthropy, blockchain, because of its distributed nature and distributed ownership models, is going to provide brand new ways that people can contribute, plus of all the new wealth in crypto. I'm really excited about that. We've got some exciting tracks on government and identity and cannabis, and I mean, just a wide range of everything and all types of levels of people. So not just holders, not just investors, but, you know, we've really big tent and want to welcome people that are brand new to the field, people that are experienced, and everyone in between.
Yeah, well, I know that Chicago has a really nice scene over there, so I'm excited. Can people, if they're not in Chicago, are you guys live streaming it, or can people watch it later or anything?
We are going to be creating a lot of videos. Those will all be available later. Live streaming options, we're trying to plan right now, but we're not sure they're going to pull through. So if you look on the website, we'll be keeping updates on the website.
All right. What is that website if people want to check it out?
ChicagoBlockchainProject.com.
Okay, awesome. And the name of the event is Voice of Blockchain. So if people are watching and they're, you know, they can go on to Twitter. What's the Twitter handle?
I should know that.
I think it's Voice of Blockchain. We'll see. Check it out. Look for some people that are doing an event in Chicago. You guys will get all the information that you need.
Okay. Yeah, so much, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sharon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We had a great time. Bye. Take care. What do you think, Josh?
Hey, I think it's really important to have these events in your local city. You know, go to them if you're interested, because you get to meet like-minded people. If you're starting a project, it's great to try to find other founders or other people to get involved in your project. If you're looking for projects to invest into, it's really good. And if you're looking for you know, other scams to point your finger at and say they're a scam, they're always hanging around some events as well. No, but it really is a great way to spread the message of crypto and to learn about your area.
Awesome. Well, I think it's time for the main event. I'm psyched about Chicago, but we need to know right now what the F is going on with proof of weak hands. What is P3D? What is FOMO? Am I getting scammed? Are you getting scammed? Let's bring on our guests. Johanna's working diligently in the back. She's bringing everybody on because we've got quite a few people. And yet, I don't know. Oh, there's Kingsley. Kingsley was the beginning of the end of my investments.
Yeah, I mean, proof of weak hands. I'm very excited.
Okay, so let me actually run you guys down. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for everybody to come on, if you want to find out more, you go to POWH.io. There's like a little button there and there's a wiki. And if you click on the beginner's guide, there's sort of a preface and it kind of gives you the basic understanding of it. If everybody could please unmute themselves, we could get started. I think it'd be great if Kingsley, you maybe talked a little bit about the project, since you seem to be one of the most knowledgeable people. You're the bringer of the flame to burn or light the room. I'm not sure. So, and also actually, you know what, before we jump right in, why don't we talk a little bit about our backgrounds? So if you guys could just go down the line, Kingsley, Petros, Preston, if y'all could just give us, give the guests a little bit of background about your qualifications for this conversation.
Yeah, sure. So I got into Bitcoin in early 2013. I started a esports Bitcoin platform along with Petros called Leet. We got acquired in last year by Unikrn, another esports company, and then I helped them direct their token sale. And more recently, I left Unikrn and started Block 16, where we help other companies with their token sales, and we're also building some internal tech. We're going to be releasing our own Ethereum wallet here soon. Based in Las Vegas, and known Tatiana for years, since back in the day, the good old Ron Paul.
Longer than that. You've known me since 2012. That's like 5 years.
Yeah. So yeah, happy to be here. Been in P3D since, been following the team since early April. Really excited about the project. I feel like it's getting a lot of negative attention that's undue. So I'm here to set the record straight.
Great. Petros?
Well, Petros, I've been working with Kingsley since 2013 too. We did Leet together, and then he went to Unikrn and I went and worked on a different kind of a startup, more in the Ethereum space and doing token valuation and different aspects of that. So I spent about 9 months trying to learn about token valuation and the different models and ways and doing Ethereum development around that. And then I joined Kingsley to work on Block 16, and we've been doing consulting for like the last 6 months too. And basically I've been developing a full stack developer the last like 9-10 years. Got into Bitcoin 5 years ago, and then Ethereum about a year and a half ago now.
Okay. Have you looked at the code of the P3D, I don't know, smart contracts and stuff?
Yeah, I've looked at P3D and FOMO 3D. P3D has been audited a few times, and that one is pretty secure as far as it goes. A lot of people have seen it. It's been working for a while, and like I haven't seen any major issues with it. FOMO had like 1 or 2 small bugs, but they're like small enough that they're not affecting the major features. So there's not really any problem.
All right, so we can get into that. And also for people that are watching, we sent over some questions to the team, so we'll be reading out some of those answers. But next I want to go Preston. Preston's going to be the opposition. I like it. I think that you can handle the heat in this kitchen. Tell us a little bit about people. I mean, no, not about people, just about Preston. Okay, well, we can't hear you. Your audio is gone. I don't know. Your audio isn't working for me. No audio. All right, well, we'll give Preston a second. We'll give him a chance. See, he was like, he's being blocked by the internet. The internet doesn't want him to have a voice. The P3D people have taken over. I'm just kidding. None of those things.
Let's start from scratch. What is it? Let's tell the folks at home what.
Yeah, but I don't want to make Preston. Okay, fine. But I just want to make sure that Preston has equal footing, because he's allowed to be a skeptic, and I want people to. I want this to be a fair debate. It can't just be like
but he knows
all
what
of us shilling. All right, fine. But all right, fine. But he should be like at the beginning. But all right, fine. All right, you're not shilling at all. You're right. You're just pissed. No, you're a neutral observer. Okay, wait, Preston, are you there? Oh, buddy, we can't hear you still. Are you live or unmuted? I don't know. All right, so Preston, we got to get you back in here, but I don't know how to do it.
Press the settings. Try the settings cog up the top. Make sure your microphone's selected.
Yeah, he was working before. I don't know. Maybe he needs to unmute. I'm very anxious about this. In the meantime, should we talk a little bit about the project and give a little bit of I don't know, background? Anything else that people need to know? Kingsley,
sure.
You want to rock it?
Yeah, sure. So so again, I've been following the team since early April. Like most, decentralized crypto pyramid schemes, I found out about it through my mother, who's been actively in the space as long as I have.
In pyramid schemes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, just in Bitcoin and stuff. But she brought it to my attention. She's really good at actually picking up on trends and following this kind of like small YouTubers that look at interesting projects that other people haven't really looked into yet. At first I was a skeptic as well, just like I was with Bitcoin and every other crypto project. But then she just kept stressing me, look into it again, and so once I really did a deep dive, just the same with Bitcoin, and really kind of studied what these guys were building and looking through kind of all the potential weaknesses in all kind of the game theory that's involved with it, and everything else that goes along with it, especially like with their messaging. So if you go to POWH.io, it's very tongue-in-cheek, kind of poking fun at crypto culture, as I like to say. It takes I love that they're kind of doing that, But then at the same time, it kind of does hurt, I feel, new people that are trying to learn more about it, because it can be kind of confusing.
All right. I mean, just as a user listening to this, or someone listening to this podcast, and I don't have a clue, I'd be frustrated as hell because I don't know what the hell anyone's talking about right now. What is this thing? Why is everyone talking about it?
So essentially, what it is, it's a smart contract. It's basically kind of like a DAO, where you're sending Ethereum, you get P3D tokens, and your P3D tokens represent your percentage stake in this DAO or smart contract. So it costs 10%. They call it a tax. It costs 10% tax to actually participate in it on the way in. So as soon as you send your Ethereum, you get taxed at 10%, and that 10% gets distributed amongst all other P3D token holders that are currently already in the ecosystem. And then when you leave, there's another 10% tax that gets distributed to the token holders that stay. So POWH stands for proof of weak hands. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have strong hands. You're supposed to commit, your Ethereum. And I kind of treat it as like an Ethereum savings account, kind of, where I just throw Ethereum in there, and you collect dividends off of everyone that's buying and selling into the contract.
Right. And when you leave the contract, when you exchange your P3D tokens back to ETH, you also get taxed 10%. Is that right? Correct.
And it's not done like through a typical exchange. It's all done with the smart contract. So you're not going on Fork Delta or IDEX or any of these others. All you're doing is you're interacting with the smart contract code.
So people have said to me, it's to explain it in one elevator pitch, it's an auditable Ponzi scheme.
I don't think technically it's actually a Ponzi scheme. They say that it's more like a pyramid scheme, and it's kind of like a special type of pyramid scheme.
I thought it was an hourglass.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, wait. Before we go into the weeds, we actually do have Preston. Preston, try it out. See if we can talk.
Can you hear the sound? Yes, I see.
It's like God himself, but maybe that's a statement that's a little bit overstated.
Maybe the marmot himself.
The marmot himself. Fine. Preston, tell us a little bit about why are you trolling P3D, and who are you? Why should people care what you have to say?
I mean, I'm not really trolling P3D. It's just that
a little bit.
Particularly, I mean, I haven't really said a whole lot about it. Except there's one tweet, and then someone from Consensus chimed in and they're like, no, dude, this is like the future of like income, and like it's going to be universal basic income. And I'm like, no, it's not going to be universal basic income. This is a Ponzi. And I mean, like they say it on the website. They're like, this is a freaking Ponzi scheme, and it's designed kind of as a half illustration of the economics of the cryptocurrency space, in sort of a very crass form, and then half of it is just like a flagrant Ponzi sort of a.
Why is it crass? What makes it crass? That's an interesting word.
So if you look at Bitcoin, right, and you ask yourself, let's just take the most skeptical view possible of Bitcoin, like the curmudgeon, like 85-year-old man who practiced at a white shoe law firm and doesn't know how to send email, right? So like if you look at it, it's like, okay, so what am I buying, right? I buy this magical internet coin, and then I hold on to it. And then it doesn't give me a right to anything, but I can find someone else who's willing to buy it from me on the basis that they think that it's going to go up in value. However, if I participate in some aspect of the consensus, I can take fees every time someone transacts in the system, as Bitcoin indeed allows you to do. So participating and investing something in the scheme, in the case of miners, it's electricity, allows you to take some fees from it. And then holding onto the thing is a question of showing whether you have a weak hand or not. So this is kind of a really condensed, more obvious, less functional version of Bitcoin, in that all of the consensus work is being performed at the blockchain layer. And this is just sort of like some kind of crazy digital parasite sort of leeching off the top of it and clogging up the network.
Okay, you're just calling P3D a parasite. Kingsley, are you just going to let him talk that shit? Oh, I shouldn't say yes.
I'm waiting
What about you, Petros? You're just going to sit there? That's it? Nobody's got anything?
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely not a parasite. I think it's a very interesting project. I think especially during this bear market, I think we're going through, a longer bear market than a lot of people thought. And so, I personally, I know that it's performed very well in this market. And I know, on the P3D level, it's really like you're just buying equity into a business that's, has profit sharing built in. So P3D is the foundational element of what TeamJust is doing. TeamJust is the development team of P3D and FOMO 3D in the whole ecosystem. But what these guys are doing, I mean, they're creating at least right now they're focused on gambling projects, and I just know from being in the gambling world and working with we've done deals with MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And I've, that's actually me and Petros, kind of where we come from, esports, gambling, and blockchain. It's just really interesting, and especially what they're doing with FOMO and the thought that they put into it in regards to into the game theory. I just, I'm really bullish on it. I guess we can kind of go on to FOMO 3D, which is the kind of the next level of P3D if you want.
Well, there's a couple things. So number one, I wanted to read what they said about is P3D, because I've got some answers written from Justo on their Discord group. So is P3D, and also I think of P3D and like proof of weekends to be almost like a casino DAO, right? So it's not like you're just investing in nothing. But anyway, is P3D really a pyramid scheme anymore, even though it was originally marketing as one? The answer is P3D is an ironic pyramid. That is to say, if you check the distribution of the token, it's actually less of a pyramid than any other cryptocurrency right now. It was designed to be a joke token that subverts the way normal cryptocurrency works, and it succeeded. If anything, it's a very interesting pyramid because the people who hold the longest and reinvest naturally become the ones at the top. So that's their answer.
I mean, if I could just chime in on that, I mean, that's absurd, right? So it doesn't, normal cryptocurrencies do not work like this. So P3D, as I understand,
maybe that's what's exciting about it. Why you got to be a hater?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
No, so with not. When you get in, you pay a 10% penalty, and when you get out, you pay a 10% penalty, right? So what happens is if you have 100, you invest 100, you're automatically down to 80. So what you need to do is sit around and then go get a whole bunch of other people to pay into the scheme so that you can get your return. And then once you're above 100, you're back in the money and you can exit, right? So that's not necessarily the case with cryptocurrency because the market works differently. But with this, there's a fixed, you guaranteed to lose a certain amount and you have to hold for a certain amount of time and wait for new entrants to enter into the scheme. And the longer you wait, the more you accumulate. So if you look at how many users were actually using the thing on DApp Radar, so the first week or two, you're looking at like 80, maybe 100 users, but roughly, maybe $500,000 of ETH went into the contract. Then all of a sudden the thing goes boom and explodes and gets really, really super popular. And you have 10,000 daily active users, which I think is the most used Ethereum has seen since the moment it started. But which is like kind of a bad day for like a plumbing company in Nebraska or something.
Already an accomplishment for them. You can't take that away. I mean, they're getting people interested.
Right, but how many of those 10,000 people are going to get their money back? I think if you look at the daily active users now, it's like 400. We don't know how many of those are repeat players. We don't know how many.
Wouldn't they if they have more games though? Because that's where you get more you make more money if they put out more games, and those are lotto games, so people are not playing them for the same reason as they're playing P3D.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. P3D. Go ahead, Petros.
So one thing I want to bring up is like it's different than like a regular token sale, right? Like a regular token sale is all based on people putting money in and then the market going up. Whereas like this is a bonded token, you have underlying ether value in there. And then because of all like FOMO or something like that, the clock continually goes down and people are trying to keep it up a little bit. So there's constantly a stream of money right now going into the P3D contract. I think it's like 16 ether a day, which is just natural from the other games. And as time goes on, that's going to increase naturally because the actual amount it costs to buy goes up as well.
Right, but I mean, let's be really clear as to what that is, though. That is a scheme where you have earlier investors whose exit and whose returns are dependent either on A, playing this game, and that's one thing, or B, getting investment from later investors. So there are some people who will be trapped by the game in the sense that they'll either have to continue to throw more money in the hopes of getting the jackpot in order to exit, or they're going to have to go get more investors in order to make up for the 20% hit that they took, the penalty that they paid when they entered into the scheme. So it's one of these things where, I mean, the law looks at that and says it's a Ponzi scheme for good reason, because, I mean, it kind of looks and feels and acts like a business, and it looks kind of like dividends are getting paid. But in reality, the only activity that's really happening is the introduction of new investment capital into the scheme. So as soon as that ceases, then the scheme's going to collapse. And sure, yeah, it might continue and trickle along for a long time. But as that tail gets longer and longer and longer, every new entrant who comes into the scheme is increasingly unlikely to recover what they put in. And so that's kind of why I'm skeptical about it. I think if you took something like this and tweaked the code a little bit, you could have a really interesting smart contract that could do things like, I don't know, bond payments or dividend payments, as long as you tied it in with a real company and did some work to ensure that it was a automation of a legitimate process. But it's not quite enough.
Why do you call this not legitimate? And let's also explain really quick a few more things about just P3D too. So each time there's a buy in the contract, the price gets automatically, it goes up, and when there's a sell, the price goes down by a certain amount. But I mean, really, it's like I said, it's really you're buying into fundamentally you're buying into a business that has profit sharing built in. Yes, your equity, the price of your equity can go up and down. But why I like it so much too, just like I said, I kind of use it as a savings account for ETH, is where I park my ETH there, and then I make dividends on P3D, but then there are other projects too. So like Tatiana said, that it's kind of like a DAO casino where they're building these really interesting projects that can't be shut down. The game theory is built in where as long as you're holding, you're collecting something. And it's like even like right now, like we're going kind of through a slow point in P3D where the dividends are quite low. But as I've experienced in the last time that this happened, where we had a run up and then it kind of slowed down a bit and then had another run up or two more run ups after that. That's then you just collect dividends as well when people are exiting. So you're going to experience times where the dividends are great or the dividends are bad. Maybe some users, in the project, they're going to see another project, another ICO or whatever, another coin that they want to invest in because of the dividends being so low. So they're going to be, pulling out of the contract, and then you collect dividends on that. So I think that, like, especially with FOMO 3D, kind of once we get into that, it's really interesting, and just their pipeline too, or their roadmap of the other games that they're developing. I think this team puts a lot of thought into the projects that they build, and it shows. I mean, they've been at least top 5. They were top 1 and 2 on DApp Radar, and for a while. But now they're it goes anywhere. Both FOMO 3D and P3D are typically top 4, top 5 for good reason.
And one thing I'd like to say towards this whole scam argument is, I find if a contract is saying straight out that you're going to make massive gains and all this sort of thing, and there's no transparency, then I would definitely. I mean, when I first heard about this, I definitely thought it was a scam, and I was like, what a load of nonsense. But when I checked it out, I really did see like a casino. It seemed like a game, and I'm not a gamer. I don't gamble. I'm not a gambler. I don't like the odds in that. But if people know that they're gambling, then and they know the odds, what I look for, what I was really scared about, was that the developers of these smart contracts built a backdoor. I mean, that was really the only real concern of mine. Look, if someone wants to blow their money on some ridiculous Ponzi scheme, auditable Ponzi scheme that they think is good and they feel it's safe, then go for it. I mean, it's up to you. It's your money. Do what you want. And so I really wanted to check that to make sure that it really isn't something that the developers can just run off with the pot.
Absolutely, same here. And since actually getting into Bitcoin, I always thought that a global crypto lotto was actually a really good use case for crypto in general. So, and just knowing that's gambling is a $400 billion a year industry. So it is a big a huge industry. So I think that they, especially the way that they created FOMO, where it's not like a typical lotto. We got to talk about FOMO. I think it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, we got to talk about FOMO. But should we read some of the answers from the team first? Do you think we should dive right in? Well, explain FOMO, because I'm looking at these and the questions sort of reference what FOMO is. So if you want to break that down, and like some of the other games, because P3D is like the underlying token, and then there's a series of other games. And FOMO is sort of probably one of the first publicly owned / audited lottos or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the biggest. Yep. It's the biggest lotto to date. In blockchain. So that's
How does it work? Well, what's the deal?
So do you want to explain it, Petros?
Yeah. So essentially, you have another smart contract, and people can put money in. They're buying what they call a key. And the key essentially gives you revenue rights to a percentage of people putting money into the pot in the future. But the pot slowly grows, and essentially there's a 24-hour timer. And every time someone buys one key, more time gets added to the timer. So slowly it goes down, but then you tend to see a trickle in when it gets close to the bottom, where people are buying keys up. And the key also increases in price over time. So eventually, like right now, the key price is 0.005 Ether. It could be 1 to 10 Ether one day, and you could have it where people have to buy that to add just that little bit more time to the pot.
And when the time runs out,
why do they need the time? Yeah, like if somebody buys the
last key wins the pot. So the last person to buy
is your lotto ticket. Yeah.
But isn't the last key going to be like super duper high? So why would anyone want to buy it? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem like an average person is never going to get to that point. Yeah, so why would they want to? Why would anyone want to play at that point? Because the game just goes forever. No one wins.
The key price will always be less than the jackpot, or at least for a while. So that's why eventually it's going to be where whales are actually kind of battling against each other, buying keys, and you're just collecting dividends off of this. To win this, massive jackpot. Right now, it's what is it right now?
22,000 Ether, about.
Yeah, right under 22,000 ETH. So, and with the key price of 0.005, we've seen right now the timer's at 4 minutes. So there's always that incentive to just buy just one key, or it's like a lot of other YouTubers that follow P3D. They say, especially if you really want to win this thing, if you're going to bed or whatever, there's even bots that have already been set up that are just buying keys, because the key price is so cheap. And they released another version called FOMO Short that did actually run into some issues, or FOMO Quick. Someone won close to $1 million at the time. In a day by playing FOMO Quick, and it's just sad that it's not these things. These are kind of exciting things that are happening in the blockchain space, and I feel like the crypto media outlets aren't really covering it.
Well, the thing is that like gambling's kind of like, I'm not a gambler. Well, now I'm in crypto, I guess I am, but before that, I don't consider myself a gambler. I don't like gambling games. I don't like video games. I don't like any of that stuff. But nobody says, well, Vegas is an illegitimate city. You know what I mean? Like there's tons and tons of businesses that are based off of gambling that are considered regular. So Preston, I don't know.
I'd like to hear what Preston had to say, because you mentioned before, if some things were changed in the code, you would see it as more legitimate. Be interested to hear what you meant by that.
Sure. I mean, so let's just, I think getting one thing out of the way, right? Crypto libertarians or crypto anarchists or whatever we choose to call ourselves, as a general rule, have a higher degree of risk tolerance than your average person. And usually, generally speaking, so I'm a law and order type guy, right? I'm a lawyer. Like you kind of gotta, if you do that, you kind of give up any possibility, unless you're Michael Cohen, allegedly, of breaking the rules, right? So I've kind of always looked at crypto and said, all right, there's all this stuff that's breaking the rules. How do I take people back onto the straight and narrow and say, why don't we reinterpret this into something else? So there are all kinds of really interesting contracts that I've seen written before that have kind of cut a few corners in order to get access to the crypto capital markets, but with some slight modifications, could have actually been a really useful enterprise tool. So my background is that we created this thing called a permission blockchain, and that was so there's a guy with a weed whacker outside, so forgive me
We don't hear him.
Well, excellent. So anyway, we automated a corporate governance structure. We turned it into we decided we're going to take an Ethereum contract and make a kind of a nonprofit board of directors and structure out of it so that people could make decisions by contributing funds to the organization. About a year and a half later, or 2 years later, Stefan Tool and company made the DAO, which is supposed to be a crypto venture fund, where you were going to put tokens in Ether, you were going to get DAO tokens back, and then somehow the returns from what you were investing was supposed to be a crypto venture. Right, but there was no mechanism. So they said, well, then the projects themselves are going to create reward tokens, and the value of the reward tokens here at the bottom of the structure is going to capitalize back into the DAO tokens, which you will then be able to extract. But there was no real link. There was no way that you could actually say, so if, for example, you had a real venture fund, you have rights in a distribution that's made, or you have rights in an acquisition, right? So what happens is your company you invested in gets bought by Intel or something. And then what happens is you get a check because Intel paid the company X and you own, whatever percentage of X, right? And so there are a bunch of legal documents where you can basically get a court to tell someone, pay me money because I had contractual rights to it. So the DAO was like almost there. It was like this close, but it wasn't quite. It didn't have all the linkages together because they didn't do all their due diligence. Similarly, when I look at something like FOMO 3D, it looks like and feels like a Ponzi scheme, right? But if you then kind of tweaked it a little bit, you could use it as a way to manage payments. You could use it as some kind of accounting software, who knows what. I'd really have to sit down with it and look at how the thing works, but it is a way that people are automating financial communications among themselves without an intermediary. At the moment, when you talk to someone else and make a financially relevant or economically relevant communication in finance, those things are subject to certain tests. You have to go read the documents and say, is this transaction authorized? And then you can confirm whether it is or it isn't. And there's a whole industry, a whole universe of trustees and registrars and corporate services providers who currently carry out these functions. So the stuff like FOMO 3D, you could say, well, why don't we look at this as a sort of payment prioritization mechanism that we could tweak slightly, and then we could kind of map it onto map it onto some structured finance transaction, which I've done. I did one of these systems for Deutsche Bank back in 2015. And so so everyone's building these really interesting, cool things in the public chains. They're really legally very, very problematic. But I think that as you start to, ERC20 ICOs are legally problematic if you're not covering your bases and depending on what jurisdiction you're in. However, what we're finding is that all of these little things are becoming standards. So maybe in 5 years, we're going to look back and say, aha, the ERC20, that was an Ethereum-based standard that emerged, which we now use for title registration of securities or something like that. So all of these little mechanics are being built that people are getting really, really familiar with. I don't think they have a future outside of the legal system. I'm very lonely in holding that opinion, but it's okay. It's all right. I don't know. It's all right because it's what it feels. So.
I feel like P3D sounds like more fun than what you described.
Yeah, I don't really
I mean, I guess it's okay. Yeah, we could have financial things, but I want to throw in money and have it print back money for me. That seems like the best offer that I've heard.
But this is the thing, Tatiana. This is what suckers want, right? This is what suckers want.
What are they suckers? They're not 5. They see the contract. What are it's not my problem.
No,
they're playing
they're
a
very
game.
transparent in what they're doing. I mean, they call the site is exitscam.me. I mean, they're pretty
Yeah, well, and that's what I like about it too. That's what I like. They're totally upfront and just saying, hey, and they're taking the piss out of themselves, and I love that. For the folks at home, you can see the screen sharing here, the current site for exitscam.me. We're down at 2 minutes 40. Maybe we'll see the exit scam happen live.
Won't happen, or it'll, actually, if it does get any lower, I might have to purchase another key. But another thing that we should mention, just with because a lot of people compare this to
I'm not playing like Kingsley, by the way. I'm not putting in more money like him. I think that he's the one who's swindling himself, and I'm being the weak hands just chilling.
I'm very strong hands in both.
You're shilling to yourself. I don't know if it's supposed to work like that.
Hey, I have thought this through. I've had many sleepless nights trying to figure out how this can go wrong, just kind of studying the game theory behind it. I agree with that the biggest thing was the actual smart contract itself, especially not being a developer. But I've had developers, and we've actually talked to very, very reputable smart contract auditing firms that have taken a look at it as well. They've all, they found and even like what the top ETH developer has looked at it. So I'm very confident in the team. That I guess they could have potentially exit scam before if they wanted to, but actually I guess we can go over one of your questions where they what they're going to say.
Let me read some questions off because I think that these are good, but let's see what we got. What reasons would you attribute that have made FOMO and P3D such a large success so far? Trust. The games don't scam players, and that's really important and a massive reason why they have succeeded so far. P3D was made as a way for everyone who lost out on an earlier DApp game that cheated them to get back into a good financial place. And it did that for anyone who saw our projects could be trusted. Do you disagree with that, Preston? Do you think that they can't be trusted, or that's not what you take issue with? You just think the whole thing's dumb? I mean, I don't think that you're saying that because I don't think anybody's contending there's like a literal way for the exit scam to happen other than people just losing interest. It's not like a regular Ponzi where there's a definitive exit, right? Or are you thinking that there's like a secret backdoor?
People go to jail for a really long time for doing this stuff in meat space. So, I mean, there are schemes that you see where, you have housewives doing it and very little pyramid schemes. There's a whole little mythology that they have around it. It's based on charity and that kind of stuff. So there are all manner of schemes that have been devised to part people from their money. And those schemes are really operating them as a very, very, very serious felony. So as a consequence, when I look at it, maybe it's interesting. Maybe people want to participate in them. In some states, as far as I understand it, participating is a crime.
I don't have any P3D at all.
So right.
Yeah, so we're creating currencies and all this other stuff. So I mean, we're in.
Well, but I think you have to ask yourself, whatever justification has been given. I look at these schemes and I say, someone won big by creating the scheme, right? And that someone has probably already made their money back 10x or whatever else, and they're out, they're done. And now the other people are using it, and they like it and they want to use it. But at the end of the day, maybe they're not fully able to appreciate the risks. There's no guarantee. It's the reason you can't buy lottery tickets on a credit card, right? Because people are dumb and they think that if they go and spend $5,000 on 2,500 lottery tickets, that'll be enough, when in fact the odds are 1 in 300 trillion that they're going to win. So it's one of these things where people are playing based on hope. The incentives line up to something very, very primal, an instinct that we have to try to make a lot of money very, very quickly. And here that instinct is, I've got a big pot of ether and maybe I can get in. And who knows, maybe the people behind this scheme have enough ether and have modeled it out so that they could actually win no matter what. They could be an enormous whale holding 2 million ETH or something like that, and just wander in and say, you know what, we're just going to have more dedication than everybody else. We'll set up a bot. We'll go hang out in Antigua and drink a martini, and when we're done, we'll come back in 6 months, and the scheme will have run its course, and no one will have beat us.
I think that's a lot of fun. Based on, I don't know, is there any evidence of that though? I thought that wouldn't the contracts be couldn't you see that there?
They actually listed out there. They have like a pie chart of all the distribution of P3D. And they list their addresses in that. And
you trust them. You trust them to be.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I always say trust in TeamJust, but so yeah, you do have to trust them with that. But regardless, I mean, if they sell, it's an autonomous, smart contract that's continuously run. So if they sell, hey, that's just more dividends for me. So be it. And I still believe in the project. The FOMO 3D will still run. There are other projects that they have lined up, or at least are being developed. They have they created an API basically that's on-chain API, where already another dev team has linked their project ETHorse that pays dividends into P3D. So what that basically is creating now, it's creating a way where other dev teams can build into the ecosystem, provide some incentives for P3D holders, and now you have this growing community that's one of the top communities as far as dApps. Where you're going to have this community that they'll be potentially interested, or most likely interested in your project if it's a good project.
This is the same stuff that we heard out of BitConnect, and it's the same stuff that we heard out of MMM And it's building a community of people who are interested, who are going to help one another.
But there's some multi-level marketing businesses that are fully successful. Look at Beauty Counter, look at Avon, look at all these other things.
True. And there's
I feel like MLMs are weird, but I do think that there's some legitimate ones in there.
And another important part is unlike BitConnect, where you got paid in BitConnect tokens, and then you had to sell those tokens for Bitcoin and then transfer it out. P3D, it pays out in straight ETH, so you're not getting a shitcoin as a dividend that may or may not hold its value. You're getting paid out in ETH, which you may think is a shitcoin, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part in this whole thing is that it's kind of auditable, and that is interesting for me. Is that, but yeah, you're right, Preston. Is that there are so many of these scammy things like BitConnect. Playing the devil's advocate on that, I would say BitConnect was totally intransparent. It was just some groups putting on big shows and with fireworks and stadiums full of no-hopers, really hoping for dreams that would and not listening to anyone else, including your own wife when she's telling you the scam.
And also, when people put their, I don't even know if this is a point that's being contended, but people put their money into lottos all the time, like a stupid state-run lotto. This one seems way more useful. At least, I understand maybe wondering if these things are predatory in nature. I don't think that the law would be a good way of figuring that out, because it could be a new thing, and then maybe automating some of this would make it more foolproof, because contracts are worthless because you have to take people to court and stuff. But I don't know. I think that the lotto part of it, if people are putting in money to the lotto and they're getting money back, it's better than if you put $1 in at the stupid gas station. Why is that more morally okay? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's making that case, but
it's very similar to a standard lotto too, where a percentage of the lotto goes to government agencies or education or something like that. But instead of huge amounts of it. So, but it still is actually large. I think it's in some areas 50% of the actual 50% of the money in is a pot, 50% goes to different places. So to this, it's a shareholder, like you said, a shareholder-owned lottery. So you're actually getting the benefit versus where it's a government-run one.
Right. You guys want me to answer some questions real quick, or anybody want to weigh in? Because I feel like I should have asked these or read them in the beginning, but oh well. What caused the first FOMO short to end so quickly? How did you feel that you crashed Infura, Etherscan, and almost your site as well on launch? Players unfamiliar with the testnet release of FOMO short attacked it like it was going to make them a 10x gain and dumped far too much ETH into it. The game works as intended. The players wanted a repeat of FOMO long. So yeah, it seemed like the whole entire thing broke when everybody played the last game. What's that about?
Yeah, so it was I would say successful for about a week period, and then I think really it was just the way that they built it. It was a little bit off, even compared to what they put on testnet beforehand. I think it had to do with the ETH congestion. People, I know personally that's sending. It took what did it take, over 30 minutes to get my transaction in. I participated in both FOMO long and FOMO quick. FOMO long was the same thing and had just as actually less hype, but it did take just as long, and ETH was experiencing congestion problems with that as well. But yeah, I think it just had to kind of do with just the way that they built it. It wasn't right on with, I think, the timing. Because with FOMO quick, there's a 5-minute cap on how long the contract will be exit scanned for, where FOMO long is 24 hours. So I'm really actually excited. I think the next FOMO release, which I hope they do, is going to be a good one, because I think they've learned the lessons from FOMO quick. So I think we're going to have a successful kind of FOMO medium, if you want to call it.
No, there's a lot of copycats out there. Y'all want me? What? Go ahead, Josh. I was going to keep going with these questions.
I just wanted a quick question, because it leads on from there. Kingsley, you don't have to answer this. It's a pretty personal question, but would you consider yourself a gambler or a problem gambler? like in general life? Are you really attracted to these sort of games?
No. I mean, I do live in Vegas and I grew up here, but I mean, I play poker, probably once a year or something like that. I'm definitely not a gambler. I mean, I mean, yeah, we're all in, like to Tatiana's point, we're all kind of gamblers or speculators, just being involved with this space. So yeah, not really at all. I don't actually participate really in playing the game for the pot. I'm buying into a DAO, a business, a lotto company or whatever, and I'm getting dividends.
Okay. Yeah. No, I just interesting because I used to live with a flatmate, and eventually I found out that she was always down at the pub playing the slot machines, like always. And I was like, "Where is she?" I was at the slots, and then it hit that she's really a compulsive gambler, and it was just the mindset of, "Hey, this is a new game," and she just loved it, and she would tell me all night long how it's totally legit, and I'd be like, "Dude, it's totally stacked against you," and I just wanted to,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think P3D and FOMO 3D and the other projects that they're going to be launching is more legit than anything that's in Vegas. I mean, to be honest.
Right.
Probably. Okay, so how many games do you guys plan on releasing in the next year? How many third-party developer games do you plan on adding? They said unknown, but as many as we can make unique. When asked about their political beliefs and how they affect the design and creation of P3D and FOMO 3D, they replied with, cryptocurrency defines its own politics right now, so let's not try to reverse that. Okay, right. Okay. So yeah, about that. They're a private team. I don't know. Why do you think that is? Anybody know? They don't say anything about that. I guess it's so they don't get killed.
It's obviously because it is like what Preston says. It is very illegal in some senses what they're doing in most jurisdictions. So they want to remain anonymous and decentralized. It's interesting.
Are we going to jail for doing this episode, Preston?
I couldn't possibly advise you in public or, frankly, on U.S. law. I can refer you to a very eminent, qualified attorney in this area who would be able to advise you very comprehensively on this.
Well, it's a good thing that I don't like this project at all. Okay. Anyway.
So, it's interesting from their perspective that they're building a decentralized application and they're a completely decentralized team, and they say that they don't even know who the other people are. Technically. Oh, wow. So it's interesting from that perspective that I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, there are a few projects in crypto like that where really all developers, I mean, Bitcoin was kind of like that in the beginning. None of the developers knew who each other were, and they were just a bunch of cypherpunks writing code and putting code into a new experiment. And I do think a lot of people are far too quick to call things a scam, whereas you should definitely always be wary of scams, But I like the fact that we can have experiments in economics like this. And I think this is one of those experiments in economic theory.
Let me read you guys the rest of these answers because I want to make sure that we get through them and then we can discuss. What are your thoughts on this being one of the first bonded tokens? Holders have access rights to the underlying asset. And how do you see that being used in other applications in the future? They reply with, bonded tokens haven't caught on yet. They might not. The thing is, it's just more money for the creators to make a non-bonded token and sell it in an ICO. Most of those are scams, but they'll keep coming until people stop buying. What are your thoughts on this as a universal basic income application? Works pretty well as a prototype of how the system would work in reality. Transactions equal tax equals salary for everyone in the system. How do you see the P3D ecosystem in 5 years? It's unpredictable. It depends on what Ethereum does. And we're going to post these answers in the notes. What are your thoughts on the possibility that FOMO 3D could have an actual exit scam?
Can I touch on that real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, just one, again, going back to the considering it as an ETH savings account. What's cool too is you're getting this token that represents your percentage in this DAO, but your value is really held in ETH. So if you believe in ETH and you believe that ETH is going to go up, you're not really losing on the ETH ETH appreciation. by buying into P3D. So I think that's you know.
So there's no secondary market on P3D tokens, right?
No.
Okay.
There's a key word there, though, which is that the key word, the key phrase is if you believe ETH is going to continue to go up. I mean, I think I'm reading these answers. You know, what are your thoughts on this as a universal basic income application? Oh, it works pretty well as a prototype of how the system would work in reality. If money grew on trees, and if I asked, you know, Nick Szabo to make me a pretty unicorn and he could magic one out of thin air, then maybe this would be a good way to create a universal basic income system. But that's not how the world works, and Nick Szabo can't give me a pretty unicorn. So this relies on the introduction. It's this new economic nonsense, again, that we've seen with all kinds of...
Don't turn into Krugman, man.
I'm not Krugman. This is not...
This could be your chance. This could be, you know, Bitcoin is evil. But sure, what's happening here?
Like, I don't see the use of the internet. I see the use for Bitcoin. I do not see the use for a scheme where it's...
Then why are so many people playing? Just because you don't like to play it, they're proving you wrong.
Well, I mean, well, actually, so many people aren't playing. I mean, you had... And that's another issue, right? So depending on how Ethereum goes in the future, like, we don't know how Ethereum is going to go in the future. We know that when, you know, 10,000 users used the dApp in a single day, it crashed in Fura, which claims to be able to process 3 billion transactions a day. Any ICO that ever is launched on Ethereum immediately clogs up the network. So at some point, I think people are going to, and if you look at the daily active user numbers for stuff like Augur or CryptoKitties, it's pathetic. I mean, it's in double digits. So despite the fact that CryptoKitties raised 20 million in January, I don't know, Union Square Ventures, I guess, has an interesting investment thesis there. But anyway, not that I have a strong opinion on that. But anyway, the fact is, all of this entire system is based on a couple of assumptions, which are in any normal world totally crazy. It's based on people continuing to invest in the scheme. That is a crazy assumption that someone will always buy something in sufficient quantities for you to make money. It's based on the value of Ethereum not plummeting to the floor when people realize that nobody uses it. So there are a whole bunch of considerations here from the skeptical side where I'd say do not use this as a savings account. It's extremely likely that you will lose most of what you have locked up in the system. And when that day comes, you know, if a major crash, really major crash came, for example, I don't know, enforcement action against one of the stable coins that underpins the entire system, no one would have any notice of it. No one would have any warning of it. It would just happen instantaneously. The exchanges would stop working and there would be no liquidity. So under those circumstances, do you really want to be that exposed? I mean, it's up to you.
That would just be anybody who has Ethereum? Like, that has nothing to do with P3D. That just means that you hate Ethereum.
Well, no.
And you think Ethereum sucks. Which is fair, whatever. Maybe, I don't know.
But if you're saying we're going to have a universal basic income system that's powered by Ether speculation and the continued operation of Ether and liquidity of Ether, you have this enormous contingent risk underlying the system, which nobody's talking about, which is what happens if the exchanges, what happens if the Securities and Exchange Commission decides to actually enforce the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, which they haven't done yet. So you know, that's a big question that, at least in legal circles, everyone's kind of scratching their heads and saying, why hasn't the enforcement come? And this is not just a Preston opinion. This is not a Marmot opinion. This is a normal opinion held by normal lawyers, to the extent that lawyers are normal people, which we're not, of course. So anyway, that's my worry about all of this, is that developers who are building these systems are either willingly and knowingly, which would be very bad, or simply negligently from lack of experience, sort of selling a dream that without necessarily doing full disclosure of the risk.
Well, time out, because I don't think that they're saying this is a UBI. I think, and this is my personal opinion, that they're positing that this is a potential experiment to create one. Like, here's an example of one and how it might work. I don't think anybody's saying, like, let's call up the government, put this in. I'm in Canada, or whatever.
But the answer to that question carries, I mean, they're putting a lot. So they said works pretty well as a prototype. That's not the same thing as saying, well, it could potentially be a prototype. However, we identify these risks. So they're leaving a lot out in terms of how so whether they know they're leaving it out or not, they're still leaving a lot out there. And so I don't think this is something where we should meme, oh yeah, it's a potential new UBI out into the market, without necessarily also memeing out into the market, hey, it's a UBI, maybe kind of, but there's a huge risk as well.
Also, a UBI that requires everybody to have an amount that they can invest in something. First of all, which isn't reality. I mean, most people don't
Well,
have
it'd be a start.
an expendable
you can't,
income.
I don't know.
Voluntary UBI, but actually, your statement
Voluntary would be the key point, huh?
Yeah, but your statement was incorrect. Like P3D, there could never be a buy or a sell, or everyone can sell except for me because I got the strongest hands. And then every time there would be a sell, I would represent, let's just say 100% of P3D. So now FOMO 3Ds is autonomous, and that's paying dividends to P3D token holders. So again, like there doesn't have to be any action actually in P3D for dividends to still flow through there doesn't have to be any action in P3D for FOMO 3D and there are other types of games that they're building to flow to P3D token holders in order to take dividends.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same question just asked twice. So it's like, okay, well, the dividends are dependent on people using application 1. They stop using application 1, they can get it from application 2, but then you're still dependent on application 2, and application 1 and 2 combined have like 800 daily active users.
Yeah, but we know being in the blockchain that the two biggest use cases or two of the biggest most use cases is speculation and gambling. And if you just recognize in the way that FOMO's built and there are other games that they're building, that's gambling's not going away, and this is just a interesting lotto concept that's completely autonomous. So
I like that it's a more honest lotto. You know what I mean? At least it's like, I think that this is more likely to be less of a ripoff than something in Vegas, right? If it's a gambling thing. I don't know if that's really the question, but
I don't know, maybe mortgage-backed securities. What about that? We all seem to have a big problem when people were gambling on those 10 years ago.
Well, why are some gambling okay and some gambling isn't?
I mean, the mortgage-backed securities were also very intransparent.
Yeah, and centralized.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of decentralized in terms of.
If we were being intellectually honest, I think we could probably, a lot of the criticisms that were leveled at the MBS market, RMBS market in the United States in 2008, with the opacity and sort of creating a system which was dependent on payments, which may or may not have been backed by assets that were correct, blah, 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 blah. All of that caused a 25% failure rate in RMBS securities that were rated AAA in 2008 that nearly brought down the global financial system. Every single criticism that has been leveled at the banks for that crisis could just as easily be leveled at so much of crypto, especially something which operates on the basis of requiring new investment capital to come in at any time. There's no firm basis on which this is going to operate unless you can get someone and convince them that the instrument, the thing that you're selling, the future flows that are going to arise from the system are worth something. And that's the exact same issue that they had with RMBSs. And that's why banks stopped lending to each other, because they said, shit, we have all the, pardon my French, but we have all this stuff in our portfolios, which may or may not be worth anything because we're not going to get the future flows. And so here it's, again, the same thing. Yes, it's ours, so to speak, in that it's the crypto community's own version of it. But I don't think we should, say, well, just because, we built it, the royal we, that it's something which is fundamentally different. We get down to brass tacks. It operates in exactly the same way and has fundamentally the same weaknesses.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that, let's just do like a quick thought experiment. Let's assume that everybody sells their P3D except for me, and I own 100%. Now I get 100% of all profits from both P3D and FOMO 3D and all their other games. Let's just take FOMO 3D, for instance. So now another FOMO 3D round 2 launches, right? And so I'm going to participate in the beginning phase of round 2 of FOMO 3D. And let's just say again that I'm the only user of these apps again. So I send money to the FOMO 3D contract. Now FOMO 3D, I essentially have funded this pot where there's a natural there's a profit incentive for someone else to come along to purchase another key, because the key price is always going to be less than the pot. And then I collect all the dividends off of that. So I don't think you're putting enough time into researching kind of the game theory that's involved here, because there's always a reason to kind of buy another key into FOMO 3D the way that it's built, and by that other people are going to see the profits being flowed down to P3D, which is the DAO casino, and so they're gonna want to partake in that most likely if they're smart. So yeah, and then we can go on with the other games and the other developers that are building onto the ecosystem. So yeah, I think I don't know. I don't think that's a really good.
This is the fatal conceit of every single one of these schemes, right? So it all makes sense logically that you're going to create a system where someone has an incentive to step in and provide more support. Like Basis, right? The new stablecoin that got 133 million bucks. I was talking to a friend of mine. I occasionally write blog posts that are extremely critical of various projects in the space. And sure enough, they go on to raise 9 figures. So a friend of mine who was running a project, who shall remain nameless, you all would know who he is, was like, oh, no, please criticize us, write a blog post about it. But anyway, one of these schemes is Basis. And Basis basically says that you can have a stable coin by incentivizing people, if the price of the coin goes below $1, to post a bond so that when the price of a stable coin reaches $1 again, they'll receive a full $1 worth of stable coin. And if the price goes above $1, what they do is they print additional shares to people who hold base shares. So excuse me, they print base coins to people who hold base shares on the logic that they will then sell them back into the market. And that will bring the price down because all of a sudden you have a greater quantity of supply against a fixed quantity of demand. In a closed universe, this makes sense. If that's all that's going on, that makes sense. But in the event of, I don't know, a liquidity crisis of some kind, and you have people who are just willing to get liquidity and get out at any price, it doesn't matter what, that's when these systems break. So even though you've created the incentive for someone to put the ether in, it still may not make sense to them. Even if they have a bunch of ether in there, they may say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses and run. That's the issue here, is that you say it's going to work always because we have the incentive. But if that had been the case, then we would have figured this out at some point in the last 4,000 years of debt and money, that this is something which can be done. The fact is it can't, because there are extrinsic events which operate on these systems, which influence the behavior of the actors, which ultimately cause them to make decisions, which cause these schemes to collapse. I mean, it's a human nature thing rather than a tech thing.
But if I was the only holder of P3D, so I'd be getting dividends all the way down, and then I was the only participant in FOMO 3D, then I'm just taking all of my profits. So there are always kind of
a reason for you're just basically washing money through the same system. Nothing new is coming in.
Yeah, but I'm funding a jackpot lotto for other people to participate to kind of get the ball rolling. So but even if no one does participate, then I'm just taking my own money and I'm getting it at 100% profits. So
how are you making more cryptocurrency where you didn't have it before?
I'm not making any more cryptocurrency. I'm just saying that there is if I participated in FOMO long round 2 and no one else did, and I'm the only P3D holder,
and you make nothing.
No, well, yeah. So no, so I'm the first participant. Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting my money back.
No, you get out 100. It all wraps up, and so everything.
I'm getting my money back.
So then let's say we have 200 people play, and you put in 100, and everyone else, so the other 199 put in 100, and let's say the winner walks away. I mean, there's 200 in the scheme, which means that not everybody is going to walk out with what they put in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No one's saying that.
One side to the other. And then everyone's going to leave with the ledger will balance, as sure as the sun rises in the morning, because you can't create ether out of thin air. But what's going to happen is people who got in first are going to get out at the expense of those people who got in later. And that's
like Bitcoin
the pyramid scheme.
Hey, I mean, that's you can say the same thing with Bitcoin or anything else. Any other cryptocurrency, right? I mean,
or any currency, no?
Yeah, and any really asset that you expect to appreciate. And no one's saying that everyone's going to be a winner by participating. I mean, that's why they call it proof of weak hands. Is so you're supposed to participate for as long as you do cover your losses and then start profiting from it.
Well, but at some point you can't. I mean, it's the old expression that Warren Buffett had about bubbles, right? Everyone's having fun at the ball, right? Cinderella goes to the ball, and when the clock strikes midnight, the carriage is going to turn into a pumpkin, and you're going to be back in rags instead of the pretty dress. But you're dancing in a room where the clocks have no hands. So you don't know when that's going to happen or how. So at the moment, in an environment where basically, you have a whole class of developers that has become instantaneously phenomenally rich overnight and can afford to subsidize these kinds of schemes. There are people worth billions of dollars out there in ETH who we probably don't even know about. Maybe it makes sense for them to operate these schemes. But I don't think, in any real universe where people actually care about money and they're just not looking at, book gains, and so they can just recycle this stuff through smart contracts like this. In any normal scenario, this would make absolutely no sense. for anybody. And I think as rationality is restored to crypto, and it will be restored either by the cooling off of the speculation, or the involvement of law enforcement, which is widely thought in legal and in legal circles, at least, to be coming, at some point. When those two things happen, then rationality is going to be restored, and I think we're going to see that these schemes are no longer tenable.
Yeah, but you could say that with any other crypto assets. I mean, for the most part.
I mean, also, these things are decentralized. They're fairly anonymous. It's kind of hard to chase people down that play this stuff. In terms of the devs, like,
it's not that.
Well,
it's not that. It's hard.
All right, guys. I think we're. You guys want me to read the rest of these questions because the show's going a little bit long, and I want to make sure we get through the end of this. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the possibility that FOMO 3D could have an actual exit scam from the creators because of unknown smart contract code TeamJust has connected to the main contract? They reply with, we actually discussed this with the community when people claimed we had a way to scam it. If it had an exit scam, we were planning on moving the entire contract balance over to an improved model. The exploit that was outlined did not work, and thus the community is forced to fight over it as it was originally designed.
What does that mean?
So basically, there was a, I
guess,
once the code was audited, there was a potential bug where there was a backdoor into it, but I guess it couldn't be verified. I'm not sure, Petros, if you can explain.
Petros, yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what happened with that. It was kind of weird because essentially what happens with Solidity code is that you can run code through having a function call it, and the functions that were being sent to were contracts we couldn't read the code of. And I don't know if they fixed this or what's happened with it, but at the time it was believed that they could have written like executable code that could have gone into the main contract and then paused any more entrance into buying keys.
This is for FOMO 3D, not P3D.
Yeah, this is only FOMO.
So what they're essentially saying is that if they were able to do that, what they were going to do is move actually all of the ETH that was in this FOMO 3D, move it into a new FOMO 3D that got rid of that bug. And it would still be, it would basically be the same thing. It'd be like a copy of the same, but without that bug.
All right. Hello?
Yo.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, my thing got a little bit weird. Okay, so thoughts on decentralized autonomous teams and the model that the P3D is setting. Ironically, trust is everything. We're trusted right now, and we haven't scammed our users. We've produced multiple cool working products.
That's
Preston's
true.
got his skeptical hat on. He's like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Will
another FOMO 3D model be released in the future? We have better models, but we try not to release the same thing. Any future models will be vastly changed. Are there any plans to make other forms of P3D with different price points? Example, 5 or 20% versus 10%. They say, nope, clones tried all of those and crashed them. 10% is a very specific mathematical model. And what about thoughts on other P3D-like projects? As far as I know, there does not exist any other projects or teams that do not have an extensive history of genuinely scamming thousands of ETH off people who play the things they create. The very one you mentioned, Z, had the development team openly and completely bought instant buys into its own ICO phase to accumulate all the initial tokens and funnel something like 80% of the game dividends to themselves. We understand here at TeamJust that while we create games based on greed, we ourselves cannot be greedy. That concept is lost on people who clone, steal, or copy our work and pretend it is their own, as the only reason you would clone or steal copy ideas is if you are greedy yourselves. Why not choose Ethereum over other blockchains? Any plans to build on others, EOS, Neo, NEM, etc.? There are no other blockchains with anywhere close to as strong a development platform as Ether. Some are getting there, but not the ones you mentioned. And then a couple last questions. What do we know about TeamJust? They're mostly anonymous, but how big is the team? Where are they generally located, etc.? We don't know anything about TeamJust. Will third-party devs follow ETH Horse and build on top of P3D? Yep. And then is there a way for the anonymous team to pull all the funds from the contract? I know that we've gone over this, but their answer is the fully open source codes clearly states that this is not possible. The FUD articles are clickbait at this point and have been completely disproven. That's quite a lot, guys. I think we got into the weeds. Anybody have any other comments now that we've gone through all the answers? I know we've been, Preston's just like thumbs down. That's his comment. He's like, you're all going to jail.
I mean, why are we, I mean, guys, why are we trusting them, right? I'm looking at POWH, Proof of Weak Hands 3D, right? That contract has existed and been in use since February, right? So nobody's talking about it in February. Who was using it in February? Developers. Are we really going to take these guys' words for it that, you know, oh, no, we're not greedy because you can't take the funds from the contract. The way that that works, you might not even have to if you're taking fees over the life of the contract and there's some big spike and you got in really early at a really inexpensive price. So, you know, all of this, yes, it's using a trustless system, but everything they've said, the only thing that's verifiable here is the code. Everything else is not. And I think people should approach it with commensurate degree of skepticism.
But
I agree.
The same could be said with, you know, if Satoshi decided to go off into the open market and sell his million Bitcoin, or
yeah, but he didn't.
colluded with the, yeah, but he still potentially can, or if he colluded with a couple of other whales and you know did a attack that way.
Pretty sure he didn't do that either.
Yeah, TeamJust hasn't done anything wrong either, so we'll see.
Anybody else? Final words, Petros? Pump. You still excited? Are you concerned about Preston's negativity, skepticism, reality, whatever you want to call it?
Like the legal aspect of it, and I understand like where he comes from. Like this isn't something the average like person would want to get into. Probably like it's like they may not have the risk tolerance, but I think my point of view is that if you're going to go look at it and you're going to say, okay, this is what it is, and I'm going into this knowing what it is. I'm not being lied to. Like BitConnect obviously was a lie. They exit scammed everyone properly. This is something that it's very hard to exit scam people, and you're going into it knowing what you're doing. I feel like it's a weird moral case to think about, but like it's in some ways it's like it's the same as like to me it's the same as going and buying a lottery ticket. You're going and buying a chance into like FOMO or P3D, you're buying into a business. Businesses go up and down. That's what it is. You have to put some capital in and you might not be able to get it out for a period of time. It's just how the world works. And it's its own little cheeky version of it in a smart contract.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think it's an interesting theory in economics and also an interesting play on the whole smart contracts space. I mean, we have been looking for a killer app for smart contracts for a little while. ICOs seem to be the one. Gambling, like you mentioned before, is the other. And yeah, conferences, I guess, is the other. But it really, it is very interesting. I still think people should definitely go with a lot of skepticism. I would like to see. I like watching this. I like watching what happens and watching it play out. And I think this is one of the very first. And I think you know, I think we'll see them clones pop up all over different blockchains, EOS and stuff that are a lot quicker than currently Ethereum is in terms of transaction volume. But yeah, we'll see what happens. As long as people say that this is a gambling site, as long as you say that there are risks, you know, I don't advise anyone to do it, but if you're going to do it, good luck.
Okay. So this has been fun. If people want to find out more about Proof of Weak Hands, there'll be a link below. I don't know, any final plugs? Let's make sure we thank our sponsor, trustetc.com/crypto. Find out about your Bitcoin IRA options over there. Final words. What are your Twitter handles? What are your sites? If people want to know more about what you think about P3D or other crypto topics, how can they find you, my guest?
You can check me out at KRH Edwards on Twitter and all the other social media platforms. And then our website is block16.io.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. Petros, any final words?
Thanks for having me. Twitter handle is Petros789, PETROS. And also I talk a lot on Medium about the state of the crypto industry and I work for Block16, obviously. So check out that. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Petros. Preston?
Yeah, so I'm Preston.
You fought valiantly on the side of the state. I'm not sure if I respect you anymore now, but whatever, it's cool. No, I'm fucking with you. Nice with the effort.
So it's geez, Tatiana, I come onto your show, I get sworn at. I don't even know.
I know. Look at this trash. We're trying to make you buy some scam coin.
So I'll never do this again. It was just horrendous. Actually, this is fun. I'd be happy to do it again.
Good.
But,
I had a good time too. Where can people find you? Hear more of you trolling the community or bringing reality to them, whichever you want to look at it.
I'll go with the second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can. So that's Preston J. Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E on Twitter. And if you really want to make me happy, you'll also follow Marmot Recovery on Twitter. And that's the Marmot Recovery Foundation, which saved the very endangered Vancouver Island marmot.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Well done.
All right. So people, come find me, TatianaRose.com. Check out our website, thetatianashow.com. You can listen to our new jingle on there. Hopefully you'll listen to it at the end of this finely edited episode. CryptoMediaHub.com is my company. Josh, Voltoro.com. Anything else?
Yeah, Voltoro.com and at Voltoro on Twitter.
All right. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.